arguably probably one of our most complex systems in at least the northern region, if not, the state outside of, the Gorge, Strawberry, Powell, stuff like that. It's shallow, it has water level fluctuations, it has a lot of predatory fish, it has a forest species that can be really prolific and reproduce a lot. It's a really dynamic system. So while this all might sound great, I'm gonna talk about maybe some of the warning signs that we're seeing at Willard, and maybe some of the changes that we want to do with it. So I know this looks like a lot. I'll walk you through it. This is a measure of year class strength. So year class would be 1 year of fish that were reproduced that year, and this is a measure of how big that year class is. So anything below 1 is considered a weak year class or a poor year class. Anything above 0 is considered a strong year class. And so this is looking at walleye and wiper all the way back to 1980. And you can see both species just have never really pulled off a strong year class in Willard. A lot of that's probably driven by the fact that it's an artificial reservoir. Those fish were introduced. There's a lot of factors that play into the historical reasons. And so we could kind of break this up into 3 different parts. So this first part, looking at the early years, we have both species weak, but they have this positive relationship, right? Where they basically follow the same trend. Both those, if one goes up, the other goes up. If one goes down, the other goes down. And then we introduced gizzard shad. So they were introduced 1990. By this 1997, they were pretty well established, reproducing, quite abundant. And we see kind of this shift where wipers start to become dominant, where they're utilizing that gizzard shad source, and then walleye declining as a result. So one species started to over-dominate and outcompete the other species. And then we started our walleye spawn. So another fairly big change that Willard saw. So walleye spawn and stocking started in 2014. And here we now are seeing the opposite trend. So walleye started to increase, wiper started to decrease. Until these last few years, where we're starting to see both of those species increase. In fact, for walleye, 2023 was our biggest year class we've ever seen in the system. And that's the fish that you all were catching last year and will catch this year. Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, the wiper are sterile. So that would be, seeming in my head, would be more controlled by the introduction of them to the body than necessarily what this chart may or may not be showing us.
It's possible. I mean, stocking trends would have a huge impact on abundance, right? If they're sterile, they can't reproduce. Only what we put in would be that. I don't have historical stocking data, so I can't shed light on if that's true or not. My stocking data starts around 2002. So why they did so well here, if that truly is stocking, maybe we were stocking at elevated rates. I don't have that information, but it's possible, certainly, yeah.
What's the reason for sterile?
They're hybrids fish. So just because they're hybrid, they are naturally sterile. So they do not have the genetic capability to reproduce them.
Okay.
Yep.
So I took it when you said booming, you're talking booming in size and weight.
Booming in size
weight
and abundance,
yeah.
yeah. Like that's the dominant fish that I expect to be caught this year. All right, our second warning sign that we're starting to see is looking at growth. And so I apologize, I tried to convert everything to inches for you all. We in science talk in metric, and this is the one figure I forgot to convert. But for reference, about 500 millimeter fish is roughly about a 20 inch fish, sorry. And so if we look at our 2 different growth rates, this is for walleye. If we look at this blue line here, this is pre-stocking. And so we saw those fish maybe not growing as fast as what we do right now, but those fish were living to a much longer age. Versus 2023, 2024, when we last collected samples to do this, those fish were growing at an elevated rate, but they're not living as long. So this is a bit concerning because where are these older fish, right? Like a 4-year-old fish is about 20 inches, but then everything above 20 inches is starting to disappear. And we saw that even before we started stocking, and there's some recruitment variability, right? Year class strength. Walleye tend to be very, very finicky. They can boom, they can bust. They're cyclic. So some of that could be that, but since we've shifted to stocking, there should be maybe a little bit more stability where we're having consistent stocking rates. There's environmental factors that play into that in terms of their survivability. Yeah.
How does one know the age of a walleye fish?
I age them.
Okay, that was like saying that I do it because I know it.
No, so we can actually, so their dorsal spine, which is their dorsal fin, which is their top fin, so they're a hard rayed fish. So we can actually clip those fish, or those spines, off the fish, embed it in epoxy, and take a thin section of it, look at it under a microscope, and you can actually see rings, almost like you were aging a tree, if you've ever seen a picture of that. So every year has a ring that you can count then to figure out how old that fish is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So I have thousands of walleye spines in storage from Willard that we have aged. That drives all this data. So this is a bit concerning, right? Like we want those older fish present in the population. Those are the fish that are going to go big. Those are the fish that are going to reach that trophy status. If you're someone who likes to eat walleye, personally, myself, I want those 15-inch fish. I want smaller fish because I think they taste better. But not everybody's that way, right? So some people like to trophy fish. Some people want to catch that big honking 10-pound walleye. And right now, it's not there, and that's a concern.
I got a question real quick.
Yes.
Do you believe that the big fish create big fish, since you're a biologist? So like a 30-inch walleye, which don't see very often, but do they create?
How about that? I'll get back to your question in a second, and later. All right, our third warning sign is just increased use. So this is a lot of points on this map of Willard, and we've actually started to look at anonymous mobile location data to do some of our studies on use of waters, and so this is a week's worth of data from the middle of June last year, or July, January. So middle of winter, no ice on Willard, but that there were still 444 unique phones that were pinged on Willard in 1 week. And that equates to over 7,501 different events from those phones. That's a tremendous amount of use on a single body of water in the winter. Almost flabbergasting, right? Like that's incredible. And that's a concern, right? Our population's increasing, our use of warm water fisheries is increasing. How can we make this sustainable? How can we support all this increased use, all this increased harvest? This is a big concern. So what did we start to change? So like I said, I started in 2022. Since I started, I nearly doubled our walleye quota. So here on this top part is walleye. The orange bar is our stocking quota. The blue bar is the number of fish that we put in. And if there's dashes through it, that means we met our quota, or we did not meet our quota. So solid bars are good things, dash bars are bad things. And so you can see we struggled prior to meet our walleye quota. And there was a lot of that was getting the spawn in place. They were trying to figure out how to make triploid walleye, which are sterile walleye that go into other bodies of water. And so there was a lot of trial and error that killed a lot of fish. And unfortunately, Willard took the brunt of some of that. But since then, we've been able to meet our quota, and we've been able to meet it at that elevated rate. So going from 1 million fish to 2 million fish, in some years it's 2.5 million fish. And those are stocked at fry. which are about 5 days old. And so they still have a yolk sac, just like an egg has a yolk. A fish can have a yolk when they're freshly born, and that's what they feed off of until they can switch to an external food source. So we stock them when they still have that yolk sac to try to increase survivability. So that's been a game changer, having a consistent, reliable source of walleye stocking. Wiper stocking, we did the same thing. I took that quota from 250,000 to 1 million. So we just have been stocking the crap out of Willard. I'm putting a lot of fish in there. Part of that is to see what sticks, and in some sense, it's throwing pasta at the wall to see what works. Yeah.
Is there a point of overstocking?
Absolutely.
To hurt the bigger fish?
Absolutely, yep. So you can stockpile fish too. You can have too many small fish, which increases density, increases competition. And so this plan was in place to do for 3 years. This is not our long-term quota, but we wanted to see, we saw that negative relationship between wiper walleye. When one species did well, the other declined. And so what happens if we stock both at really high rates? Are we gonna see that negative relationship where they decrease, one decreases, one increases, or are we gonna see them go together? We actually saw them go together in this case, but probably not sustainable. I'll hit on that. I also abandoned our 2-inch stocking. I know it's kind of tough for people in the back and on the side, but as long as I have data, we've never met our 2-inch stocking quota. And I said, why? Let's get rid of this. There's no sense in trying to do this if we're never gonna meet it. And so we took these fish, we put them here as fry, because we've had great success with fry in the walleye. Why can't we do the same for wiper? And we've had great success with wiper fry as well. And then some of that quota became 8-inch fish. So they're about 7-8 inches. So there's 5,000 of those. And those are our catchable fish right away. Or at least fish that would be less vulnerable to being eaten and would grow into a catchable size fish. So there's kind of those two different strategies with wiper stocking that we have now implemented at Willard. And we also now stock fry by boat. So I have all sorts of coolers on our boat. I run those fish out into the middle of Willard in the middle of the night and dump those fish in the water. The rationale behind that is the wind will help disperse them. You don't have this kind of hot spot. If we dump fish off at the boat ramp, some school of wiper locks in on that and wipes out our entire year class of fry. That's a tasty treat and easy food source for them. So we dump them out in the middle. We dump them out in a lot of different locations. We don't just dump them all in one spot, and we do it at night so that there's no visual ability for those fish to kind of cue in, which seemingly has seemed to work well. All right, so future management actions. So 2 top predators at high abundance, is it sustainable? Like we talked about, probably not. You can certainly overstock, but we wanted to test out some of these new strategies, shifting our quotas around, stocking at night, stocking by boat, shifting from 2-inch to fry, things like that. We wanted to see what worked. And right now, it seems like everything that we're doing is working, but we've also had the right environmental conditions for it to work too. So that's an important consideration. So we need to figure out kind of what we can do going forward. That's probably going to be some sort of adaptive stocking strategy. Walleye will probably tend to get a bit more priority than wiper because it's our brood source, and we need that population to sustain other waters. So maybe it's every other year wiper get a high stocking rate, the next year it gets a lower stocking rate, try to balance some of that, keep it a little bit more sustainable. So maybe a little bit more variability. And then talking about regulation changes to protect and stabilize walleye, and that's kind of the second part of what I want to talk about. So what does this mean for you all? So the fishery is improving, in my opinion. But balancing these two top predators is going to be a challenge and will require a lot of continued adaptive management. Not being afraid to change things, not being afraid to try new things like we have done in the recent years, I think is going to be a really important part of Willard going forward. And you all participating too, giving me feedback, I set 24 nets out there, and sometimes that doesn't catch the fish that you're catching too. So, I know people have been catching 26-inch walleyes out in Willard right now, but we don't see those fish in our nets. Building up this relationship where you all can provide me information is really useful too. I can do the data, I can do the analyses, that's not a hard part. I can do the technical side, but the relational side is probably more of a challenge for Willard than anything right now. Especially as we're talking about changing regulations and stocking strategies.